and I look at Cam, I'm not a huge Cam fan, but I do think that defenses have to account for him. And during that game against Philadelphia, they were saying when you have a quarterback to run, you got 10 blockers.
Yeah, right. That was an excellent point.
That's a huge advantage of some of these teams. So I think some of these quarterbacks that can, run a little bit. Even you hear every year Andrew Luck when people say, "Why don't he run more?" And it may get to the point where Indianapolis says, we got to start doing some things. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Not the fastest guy, but he can make 2 or 3 guys miss.
Underrated runner.
And he makes teams pay.
Yeah.
Because he'll get you at least 2 double-digit rushes a game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference in getting into comfortable field goal territory versus punting.
Right.
And giving the other team a chance, opposing offense a chance to, work the ball down the field. So, yeah, I just think it's great to see what Gurley's doing. Mark Ingram. He's a guy that's been well rested for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And now, as they've removed all of the weapons, from the Saints, all the weapons that we've come to know, here you have a 4th, 5th year back Heisman Trophy winner that's now giving you 14, 15 carries and getting you 130, 140 yards. And they're like, whoa, we really didn't know we had this. So I just think it's great to see the running back making a difference once again. You mentioned Cam Newton, which was my last point. His 6-0 team record, is it impressive to you, B?
I'm not sure. This is the first year I can remember the top teams on the record all having top defenses. When you look at Denver, it's a top defense. Yeah. When you look at Green Bay, surprisingly, it's a top defense. And when you look at Carolina, it's a top defense. The Bengals, consistently a top defense. Even New England, who would have thought that they could get rid of Revis and have shut down cornerbacks? So I don't know if it's a product of these teams deciding we're not going to invest money all over the field and saying we're going to stick with 1 or 2 big salary guys and then just going out and getting these younger guys and letting these teams grow. But in my opinion, all of those teams are all dangerous because every single one of those teams has a top defense. And I will say this, looking at the schedule earlier, if the Broncos can go through this season with 2 or 3 losses playing the Patriots, the Packers, the Bengals, that's one heck of a schedule. They're going to be the most battle-tested team, and I think 2 of those 3 are on the road. So they may, in the end, if Peyton Manning can somehow find the fountain of youth, they may be the most dangerous team.
To your point earlier, a manager, I'm thinking you mentioned Trent Dilfer. Trent Dilfer made 2 key throws when he won that chip with the Ravens. He made 3 key throws. 2 of them were to Shannon Sharp. I'm sure that Peyton Manning can do that.
Right.
Now, B went away from my question, man. Is this?
He answered it.
He did, but he moved on quickly. G, is
Cam Newton impressive?
Is it MVP? I mean, is this a team that should be amongst the favorites as we get into the postseason? I would say this, man. Y'all were talking about that fantasy football stuff.
Yeah.
I had on my ride home before we got the recording. Has anybody in the last 4 years drafted Jonathan Stewart as their fantasy football running back? Okay, G.
He put his hand up. I ain't go for that.
Okay. This is an audio show and not a video. Yeah. But to you, man, I mean, is it MVP worthy? Is this a team that we should be watching, looking for in the playoffs? What's your thoughts?
So, I agree that the Panthers have a legit defense, but I do think it's impressive what they, Cam, however you want to put it, are doing, because when the season started, who was he going to throw to? Like, it was Greg Olsen, and then everybody's like, oh, Devin Funchess is going to be their guy. Like, he's going to be right.
It was some hopes.
And look, it's not college anymore. Like, he's out there looking lost, and it hurts me to say that as a Michigan fan. But, yeah, I mean, Cam is doing, to me, what we talk about other great quarterbacks to him. I'm not saying he's great yet.
Right.
And a lot of it is because he is the dual threat. But Ted Ginn Jr., he's been in the league for a few years now, and people were calling him a bust.
Yeah.
And he was relegated to punt returns,
right.
And last year he started catching balls, not a lot, and all of a sudden now he's touchdown every other game.
Yeah, at home.
Yeah, at home.
his stats at home are much better than the ones on the road.
Yeah.
To your Jonathan Stewart comment, if they keep running Cam Newton, he ain't gonna be there about mid-November, early December. So I figured Jonathan Stewart towards the middle half of the season was gonna start getting those carries. But to answer your question, I think Carolina is definitely in the discussion. They're in a weak the teams,
division.
Yeah, you know, Atlanta,
NFC South.
Yeah, that division, it ain't much to talk about. So yes, they have a good shot, and they have home. If they can have home field advantage, it will definitely be difficult to go there and get some W's. But when I compare them to those other 4 undefeated teams,
yeah,
they all have a better offense. They all have, you know, when it comes down to making plays, you don't really scratch your head and say who, or, you know, you talked about Aaron Rodgers being able to make a lineman miss, a linebacker miss. Mm-hmm. By that time, those receivers gain separation. Even if Cam makes people miss, who can gain separation? So I like the other teams because they have better offenses.
What about that skill player, that wide receiving core down there, all Buckeyes and Wolverines with Philly Brown and Ted Ginn, as you mentioned, and then Funches. Yeah. But another name that I didn't throw out there in the resurgence of the running backs was Le'Veon Bell, by the way, for the Steelers. But what I will say is Ron Rivera was on that hot seat for a minute, and I just give a team credit because a team, being a fan of G with the Detroit Lions, me with the Washington Redskins, I really appreciate teams that can win the game as a team. And
who thought that the Redskins would be better than the Lions this year?
Hey man, I wish y'all would have beat the Cowboys in that playoff game last year, but it didn't happen. But I'm just saying, man, I really feel like I can watch Carolina and appreciate that. I mean, they do have a standout QB, but it's really a team game, and I just feel like some of these teams that stink and stink year in and year out, they just don't play ball as a team. And Carolina is, and they have a defense that allows them to feel comfortable doing it, but they just play the field position game. You know, they punt the ball. They don't, you know, they just do what they need to do, and eventually they feel like they wear you down. And like you said, just watching Davis and Kuechly just do their jobs, and then that kid Norman at DB, it's an impressive group.
He looked very good.
It's an impressive group to watch. I don't know if, like you said, I don't know how they match up against the rest of the field once we get into that second round of the playoffs. But hey, they're there, and that's all you really want your team to do. And we're gonna get into this first break, and then we coming back with Hoops and Hops with the in-person appearance by Mr. G. Be back in just a sec.
Going for 2, your number 1 source for fantasy sports with
Does one of those control
sports advice, exclusive community forum, and some of the best and most knowledgeable writers in fantasy sports. Visit today at going42.com. That's going4,2.com. Going for 2 features NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, and more. And they also provide the best advice for your FanDuel, DraftKings, or daily fantasy sports site. Sign up for the Going for 2 newsletter and get updates immediately through your email. And while you're on the site, make sure you check out the exclusive section, Why I Hate. That's going42.com, GOINGFOR2. Going42.com. Go visit and get the inside scoop of everything fantasy sports.
All right, and we're back. It's the Pay Me No Mind show. Your host Wood. I have G and B in the house. My brother, we getting ready to get into some hoops and hops. Just a special edition, special segment. Because like I said, we didn't talk about any of the matchups because we had been out of pocket for several weeks. So we tried to do a lot of things, and I thought it was a good show.
Yeah.
But a lot of good, a lot of good matchups have already happened. be on the lookout as I post this podcast. I got a pretty interesting article going up on goingfor2.com. You can find me at RL Woodson, just talking about these opening games and have they been wasted. Because we look at D Rose and the King James on opening night up against Game 1 of the World Series, and I had to make a decision. But you have to check out the article to see what I did. Gee, man, you and Brandon, I think you like the Pistons. You're a Pistons fan.
I'm a Pistons fan.
I know you get into the Heat before James, before LeBron got down there. I won't hold that against you. But it was announced today that Billups and Wallace, both jerseys, will be retired, man. You on board with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What about you, B?
They were a big part of Detroit basketball, man. I mean, in that team, though they didn't get the banners that maybe some of the other teams had over a run, they were a pretty powerful unit. They were. I think this worth it. I think that was two of the bigger players on the team.
Yeah, I mean, they won a championship, back-to-back finals appearances. 6-time Eastern Conference Finals appearance.
6 consecutive.
Yeah.
5 consecutive. Only second to the Los Angeles Lakers in conference championship appearances.
Yeah, they lost that last one.
From 03 to 08.
Look. And maybe this is me because I love Chance. Like, that's my guy. Like,
if there was one I question, Wallace.
But he played a key role because he did all that dirty work that no one else wanted to do.
But he couldn't make a layup.
Doesn't matter.
But you know what?
They don't double.
He averaged 10. He almost averaged 10 points a game for 3 seasons in that 03 to 08 run. He was close to 10 points a game.
And look, he guarded Shaq by himself. All right, like
that says it all right there.
But guarding and actually.
Negating, he was out there.
He was on the court. I mean,
that was my look. That's why we did that pod before, like with the going to work Pistons. That team, and look, R.I.P. Flip Saunders. That was very that struck me that he passed so early. But that was the one thing that I didn't like about him taking over the team. They got away from some of that defensive mentality. Definitely. They got away from some of the. They went to more defensive schemes as opposed to we just play man. Just take your man. And I'll never forget that LeBron going nuts in the fourth and the overtime because there was no defense. It was terrible. I don't even want to talk about it. It hurts my heart.
Yeah, I guess, I had to take my hats off to, Big Shot Billups. One of the game's most improbable MVP, finals MVPs, but like I said, when you lead a team to 5 straight conference championships and you said back-to-back finals appearances, I mean, that's a big deal. And they made the East relevant, during a stretch where it was pretty poor in the East. So
I'll wrap this up by giving a Paul Pierce story real quick.
Okay.
As far as Chauncey Billups getting his jersey retired, so they do the Summer League games, and a few years ago, Pierce and Chauncey were out in Vegas, and Paul walks into the gym. It's a whole bunch of NBA guys, young cats, old cats, and Pierce is like, all right, everybody off the floor. Everybody off the floor. If you ain't a finals MVP, that's me and Big Shot. Go home. He commands that respect from other players. All right, Chauncey Billups is that dude, man.
No, I can't take nothing away from Chauncey. We can say that it is emblematic of the type of work, a blue collar player that the Pistons typically draft and or acquire in free agency.
I think if you look at Wallace, what's your thoughts on Tayshaun though? He was equally a lockdown defender that played an impact offensively. He did more for the team, in my opinion, against he could guard 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
If you put Wallace up there,
I think Tay gets retired, but he's still playing. He's on the Timberwolves right now.
Right. Yeah,
I think Tate gets it.
So you think, okay.
Yeah, I think Tate gets it.
I'm iffy about Rip. I don't know if Rip gets